Death at Whitechapel. Chapter 4. A very independent spirit is a marked characteristic of the lower classes of servants. Even when seeking a place after arranging with a mistress, they not unfrequently fail to appear on the specified day. They have changed their mind, thinking the work too hard or the neighborhood too far from their friends or what not. Domestic Household Service, Life and Labour in London, 1903. Bishop's Keep, Dedham, Essex, 13th of November, 1898. "Well, my girl," Sarah Pratt said angrily, "it's high time you showed your face." She shoved the copper stock pot to the back of the iron range. "Where have you been, Mary Plum? It's nearly 4 and the potatoes not peeled for supper, nor the tea table laid in the servants' hall." The new kitchen maid, a pert, red-headed girl of 15 with ivory complexion and a tip-tilted nose, looked at her with innocent eyes blue as the summer sky. "Well, I've been to school, Mrs. Pratt. Don't you remember? Her ladyship told me I might from 2 to 4 with the village girls." She tied a clean white apron over her grey cotton dress and got out a loaf of bread. "I've been learning to use Mrs. Quipley's sewing machine." "School!" Sarah hissed between clenched teeth. She took down the pudding that was meant for the servants' tea. "I thought you were done with learning a long time ago." Mary Plum, whose experience as a second kitchen maid at Marston Hall made her seem eminently suitable for the kitchen at Bishop's Keep, was a replacement for Harriet, who had departed a fortnight earlier. Sarah missed Harriet sorely, and though she would not have admitted it, the girl had always been willing, albeit a trifle untidy, never talked back, and had followed Sarah's instructions with diligence, if not always with attention. Unfortunately, Harriet was now employed in the post office in the nearby village of Manningtree, where she had proudly confided to Sarah in a penciled letter betraying many erasures. Her hours were fewer, the work less strenuous, and she had been promised a promotion after a year's satisfactory employment. Harriet's betrayal galled Sarah, all the more because her ladyship, quite inexplicably, had encouraged the girl to take the new position when it was offered to her. "Advancement and a change of scene," Lady Charles had said approvingly. "I applaud your ambition, my dear." Whereupon she had given Harriet a sovereign for good service and promised a good character reference should that be required in the future. Sarah harumphed to herself. She admired her employer, but some of his schemes and notions were quite unfathomable. A sovereign for good service to a servant who threw over one perfectly good post for another. But perhaps that was just the way they did things in New York, where her ladyship had grown up. Mary began to slice the bread, working rapidly and neatly. "I am done with learning, Mrs. Pratt," she said. "Book learning anyway, but this is different." She raised her chin. "I'm learning a trade, one of the useful arts." "And what is it you're learning from me, I'd like to know?" Sarah demanded. She shook her spoon at the menu slate hung on the wall beside the great cupboard, with the next day's dinner menu: carrot soup à la Crécy, roast fowl, vegetables, compote à peaches, and a charlotte à la vanille was displayed. "Look at those dishes. You're learning to cook, ain't you? That's a trade and a fine one. As you know, I've been doing this for 25 years in the very same kitchen." Mary met Mrs. Pratt's eyes. 25 years in the same kitchen," she said in a wondering tone that just barely missed out on being insolent. "Why, I don't believe I could stand it." Sarah narrowed her eyes. When she was taken on as a kitchen maid, the first thing she was taught was to hold her tongue. If she had spoken with such impertinence to Mrs. Howard, who was cook before her, she would have had her ears boxed till they rang. But like it or not, the times had changed, and kitchen maids, especially experienced ones, were harder to come by and much more independent. If Sarah boxed Mary Plum's pretty little ears, as she felt like doing, Mary Plum might well take off her apron and march the 2 miles to Stafford Place, where Lady Stafford's cook, whose previous kitchen maid had gone off to London to work in her cousin's fish and chip shop, would welcome her with open arms and an extra half holiday twice annually. Sarah would have to recruit one of the housemaids to help with the cooking until her ladyship hired another kitchen maid, who would probably have half Mary Plum's experience and twice her impertinence. It was not an inviting prospect. Add to it the desperate personal predicament which had recently threatened Sarah Pratt's peace and tranquility, and it might be understood that she was unusually short of patience these days. "Not so thick with that bread," she snapped. "That's the last loaf till tomorrow's baking, and as soon as tea is done, the potatoes is next." She paused deliberately. "Thompson has sent in some fine large potatoes, so I believe we'll make crulls for upstairs dinner." Potato crulls were potatoes cut round and round in a continuous spiraling curl before they were cooked, requiring a sharp knife wielded with careful attention. That should keep the saucy miss occupied. And mind you, wash 'em in very cold water, she added, knowing from personal experience how that chilled the fingers. The colder the better, and peel them as thin as can be, but no breaks. If one breaks, throw it in the slops and start over. Mary's little cry of consternation was lost in the opening of the kitchen door and the entry of Mr. Hodge, the butler. He had been hired last year when the previous butler, Mudd, yielded to wanderlust and departed for New Zealand and life as a sheep farmer. Mudd had been young and inexperienced, and Sarah had ruled the roost when he was the butler. Now she had to submit to Mr. Hodge, Frederick B. Hodge, that is, who would never in his wildest dreams imagine himself herding sheep in New Zealand. Experienced in the fine art of butlering, he was a reserved, formal man of indeterminate age, whose coat was always brushed and tie unfailingly straight. His erect carriage and precise language reflected his insistence on professional discipline on the part of the staff. "There has been a change of plans, Mrs. Pratt," Mr. Hodge said in his dry, correct voice. "Tomorrow's guest has already arrived. There shall be 3 for dinner." Mr. Hodge's tone did not indicate what he thought of such a breach of decorum, but Sarah was vexed. 3 for dinner meant a recalculation of the fowl and the addition of another entree. But that had been the way of things ever since Miss Ardley married his lordship and become involved in society, and she was resigned. 3 for dinner, eh? She said. "Thank ye, Mr. Hodge." She turned to Mary Plum. "You'd best hurry your tea, me girl. As soon as you're done, you draw and pluck another fowl and peel those crulls. Mind you now, very cold water." This time Mary Plum's dismay was clearly audible. Sarah smiled to herself. Yes, there was more than one way to handle an insolent kitchen maid. Standing at the edge of the terrace, looking out over the gardens, Kate was pleased. The year before, she had ordered the renovation of the south gardens, which had been neglected for several generations. Her 2 aunts, from whom she had inherited Bishop's Keep, had been far more interested in the practical kitchen garden that provided vegetables and fruits for the table than in the extensive pleasure gardens that had once surrounded the house. Before the aunts, her grandfather had thought flower gardens frivolous, costing a great deal of money and requiring the time of men and boys who might be better employed in the fields. But while practical, Kate counted the costs of the gardens. She also respected the value to her, to the estate, and to the boys and few girls who were being trained in the horticultural arts by her new head gardener, Mr. Humphreys. When trained, these young people would have a secure trade which would pay them far more handsomely and reliably than common field work, which, in the current agricultural situation, was not easy to come by and not very secure. A boy or girl who learned gardening was a boy or girl who would not have to go to London to find work in a factory. In Kate's view, growing young gardeners was equally as important as growing gardens, especially when it could be done with money she had earned from her books and was free to spend in any way she chose. So it was with a great deal of satisfaction that Kate looked out over a garden reclaimed from the wilderness that had overtaken it, pruned, planted, transplanted, manured, and mulched by a team of 4 boys and 2 girls in blue tunics, at work today trimming the yew and privet hedges so that they were straight-sided, a little narrower on the top than the bottom. "I congratulate you, Mr. Humphreys," she said. "You've done a fine job." Mr. Humphreys grinned modestly, showing tobacco-stained teeth. "Thank you, milady. I'm particularly proud of the old rhododendrons. There are several of the early Spanish and a yellow Siberian, and the new herbaceous border, of course. It won't lack flowers for cutting, but the border'll take less time to tend, and we can go on to other things. The rose gardens, for instance." Kate also loved the rehabilitated rose garden, which contained some lovely cultivars, including a very old Lyle du Bourbon that had been a wedding gift to her grandmother, and a moss rose called Rouge de Luxembourg that her great-grandmother was said to have planted as a young girl. Kate treasured these horticultural connections with her Ardley ancestor, who had lived here long before her father angrily renounced his inheritance and went off to America, where he married her Irish mother. The garden somehow made her feel more English, and while she did not want to forget who she was or the America she came from, she also cherished the English part of herself and was glad that she could help bring the garden back to life again. As Kate was about to ask the gardener to take her through the rose garden, she was interrupted by Sally, the parlour maid, who came through the French doors onto the terrace. "Lady Randolph Churchill, milady," she said breathlessly, and curtsied. Kate was startled. Jenny's first visit to Bishop's Keep had been pleasant and uneventful, several days of quiet walks and relaxed country drives, sharing experiences and confidences, and the 2 women had become fast friends. But Jenny was an extraordinarily attractive and desirable single woman who could choose among dozens of invitations from her friends and admirers, including the Prince and Princess of Wales. So Kate had been greatly surprised when she had telegraphed 2 days before, inquiring as to whether she could come for another visit. And now, here she was, a full day before her expected arrival. "Thank you, Mr. Humphreys," Kate said hastily to the gardener and to the maid. "I'll come in, Sally. Is she in the drawing-room? Oh, and do tell Mr. Hodge that there will be 3 for dinner." The maid turned with a helpless gesture. "Lady Randolph, milady." She curtsied again and vanished. "Jenny!" Kate exclaimed as the lady came onto the terrace. She was dressed in a blue wool travelling suit, piped in a darker blue velvet, her dark hair piled up under a matching blue velvet hat with white feathers and a swath of veil. She was as beautiful as always, but lacked her usual cheerful opulence. Her cheeks were pale, her eyes were heavy, and she looked exhausted. For the first time, Kate noticed the fine lines around Jenny's mouth and between her heavy, dark brows that gave away her age. "I do so hope I'm not putting you out, Kate." Jenny made a wry, self-deprecating face. "Such inexcusable rudeness, not only to invite myself, but to arrive early." Kate took Jenny's gloved hand in hers and bent forward to kiss her cheek. "Don't be silly," she said warmly. "You've only given us more time to be together." She stepped back. "But the train has tired you. Your rooms are ready, of course, and you'll want to rest before tea. Charles returned yesterday from Somersworth. He'll be delighted to see you." She squeezed Jenny's hands and let them go. "As am I." "You're too kind," Jenny said. She bit her lip, hesitated, and then said, "I know that I owe you an explanation for imposing in this way, but I... She stopped. "No explanations, Jenny," Kate said. "Whatever your reasons, I know they are good ones." But she had to admit to a swift rising curiosity. While the Jenny who had visited 2 weeks earlier had been calm and deliberate, the woman who stood before her now was shaken and, if Kate could trust her intuition, desperately afraid. Afraid of what? Had something happened to disrupt her love affair with George Cornwallis West? Had Winston gotten himself into a scrape of some sort of scandal? Or perhaps the difficulty had to do with money, of which Kate knew her guest was perpetually and dangerously short. Jenny walked to the edge of the terrace and put her hands on the rail. "I didn't have any choice," she said in a low voice as if Kate had not spoken. "I couldn't stay in Cumberland Place because—" She didn't finish the sentence. Kate raised her eyebrows, saying nothing. Jenny turned, her jaw tense, her expression enigmatic. "I asked to come because Daisy Warwick suggested that I seek Lord Charles's help with difficult matter. I've come early." Here her voice broke. She swallowed, pressed the back of her gloved hand to her lips, and continued. "I've come early because the difficulty has become desperation, I fear." She closed her eyes and then opened them wide. "I fear I'm in a very serious difficulty."